Hey guys, welcome to Darrell Intense. Well, today I'm going to restore cast iron. My buddy Steve called me about a week ago and said, hey, I'm driving down the street and I'm finding at the end of a driveway, there's a cast iron Dutch oven. There's a sign next to it that says free. I don't need it. Do you want it? I said, you know what? I absolutely want it. So Steve brought it over, dropped it off. It's really in pretty decent shape, but it's got some rust spots and I really don't have any idea of the history of it. So I thought I'm going to strip it down and completely re-season it, restore it, and I want you to be a part of the process. That's what's coming up on Darrell Intense. Okay, well, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but yeah, it's got a hue of rust on it, and so I'm gonna take some a Brillo pad and see if I can't scrape that down a little bit. The inside, the inside doesn't look bad actually, but I don't know how much seasoning there has been built up over the years, and so I'm just going to strip it all down. Now, you never use soap on cast iron because it eats away at your seasoning. But to be honest with you, that's what I want to do for this process so that I can at least, to the best of my abilities with a little elbow grease, take it down to the cast iron, and then I'll re-season it after I have opportunity to take all the rust off. So that's the plan as we move forward on this project. There are some different kinds of cleaners to use, but especially for this initial wash, I'm going to just put some hot water on there and put some Dawn soap on there and see if with this steel sponge I might be able to clean it up, at least initially, just kind of go to town with it like that. So I'm just going to scrub the harsh places. You can see some burn spots where it's had coals on it. That's what these are made to do, no problem there. But I'm going to see how much of this I can get cleaned up, at least initially, just through this kind of a soapy hot water around the rim and over the top of the whole surface. It's a little sticky in here, so I'm not sure how they have gone about the process of seasoning it, and that's just why I want to strip it down at least as much as I can with elbow grease and just start all over with the whole process. Again, there's not a lot of rust on the inside at all. I don't see any nicks or any scrapes in it either. I think the cast iron's in good shape. Just gonna, not knowing the history of it, gonna start all over and see if I can renew it and restore it and even take it back to what would be a brand new condition with seasoning. Get the patina back, a little bit of a shine, just a clean beginning for this old piece of cast iron. Texsport 4 quart is what it is, and yeah. Okay, well, that's an initial round, but looking at it, I'm going to grab some baking soda and some vinegar and kind of stir that around and let it go to work on. I mean, there's still some rust spots, right? There's still some of those main rust spots that I saw earlier. So I'm going to take some baking soda rather. See if I can't get rid of some of that. I'm going to let this just sit here for a little bit and see if that baking soda and vinegar will continue to eat away at that rust. Well, I've been just letting this set for about 10 minutes since we were last here, and you can see that it's still working. It's still bubbling. It's still fizzing, and that just means that baking soda and vinegar is still going hard at any rust spots. And so I'm just going to let it continue to go, maybe 10 minutes, 30 minutes, just till it loses its fizz. But as long as there's some fizz going on, that's a good thing. All right, now we're going to come in here with this Brillo pad. And just especially in this area, just these few rough spots. Well, I got to tell you, that's rather impressive, actually. Looks pretty darn good. It looks like that rust is, completely off there. So I'm going to rinse this off again. And in fact, I may even give it another wash with soapy water, warm soapy water, the whole thing. And then dry it off. And then I'm going to put it in the oven at 200 degrees just to warm it up. Get all the moisture off of it and out of it for a few minutes, probably, 10, 15 minutes. And then I'll pull it out and I'll start the process of putting some oil on it. So that's what's next. Okay, so now that I've got that out of the oven, now I like to, I use flaxseed oil. Some folks use just regular vegetable oil. Some people will use olive oil, but I prefer just a shot, just a splash of flaxseed oil for seasoning. That's just what I have traditionally done, and that's pretty much what I do. Now that is one hot son of a buck, but we're just going to put just a thin coating of that oil is all we care about. Just a thin coating, and what I'll do is I'll put 2 or 3 coats of this, just like this. I'll do this whole process 2 or 3 times, but man, you can sure see how that oil is taking, that cast iron is taking all of that oil. So yeah, even by putting it into the oven, that dried it out very nicely. I'm just going to put another, just a splash of oil there, so I can get here in all these spots, and then we'll put it back in the oven for about 15 minutes at 300 degrees. All right, and what that will do is actually allow this oil to begin to pool in a way that we can then take it out. Yeah, there we go. We'll take it out and wipe off all of the excess so that I won't have runs, drips, pools in my seasoning. Okay. So let me grab a little more of this. In fact, I think what I'll do, you want to get good around all those little ribs so that everything has the flaxseed oil, everything. The outside of the rim of the lid, just everything you want completely saturated along the top, the handle, under the handle, everything completely saturated with just a thin layer of that flaxseed oil. Okay, and once that's there, then I go back to the oven. And I'm going to set it upside down on the rack so that it will pool. And in the pooling, I'll be able to grab it out of there and wipe off, like I said, wipe off the excess. So now I'll do the exact same thing with the main body of the Dutch oven. So again, splash of flaxseed oil. And you want to do this, you want to oil it up while it's a little warm. It just enables it to receive that oil better. In fact, you saw how well a couple of times I needed to put some more oil on there, because just the dryness of that cast iron, all of those nooks and crannies were certainly taking in that oil. So that's a good thing. That's what you want. But the tops of these, the bottoms of these feet, everything on this needs a thin layer of the flaxseed oil. Around the handle, you want to get all of that cast iron coated with just a thin layer of oil. We're doing the tops, we're doing around the rim, around the handles. This is the protective coat that begins to season the cast iron and make it so that things just pop out of there much simpler. Putting a splash in there. I'm going to want to go up along the sides. That may have been too much oil there that I splashed in the inside than what I really needed, but it's okay. That's why we're going to send the oven up to 300 degrees. And I'm going to put this in there for about 10 minutes, again upside down, and that will. And I've got a cookie sheet down below that will pick everything up and absorb all the any drips. But you really want to get all of the runs and pools off the cast iron for the long term. Okay, so this goes back in the oven upside down. And I'm gonna take the oven up to 300 degrees, and I'm gonna let that set in there for about 10, 15, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I'll pull it out, and we'll wipe off the excess. This has been in there at 300 degrees in the oven for the last 20 minutes, and now all I'm doing is just wiping off any excess. And yes, 300 degrees is warm when dealing with cast iron. But all I'm doing is wiping off any excess so that all I really have is just a thin layer. There we go, no pools, no runs, no drips. And this goes right back in the oven, upside down. And I'll grab the main part of the Dutch oven. Now you notice I use a bandana. I just like a cotton cloth bandana. Typically, I don't like a paper towel because of the lint variable. I do know some people use Kent Rollins, I think, uses shop towels, and those work great. But I've just always found a bandana works very well. Now I will tell you regarding that, I will wash the bandana out in the kitchen sink with some Dawn or some kind of a degreaser before I put it in the laundry, and I find that actually helps the marriage be better. So that's what I've learned over time as well. So okay, so that's been there. That's been in there for 300 degrees. We got the excess off. I'm tipping it back upside down, putting it on a cookie sheet. Okay, so I'm putting it all back in the oven, and now I'm setting the bake time for 400 degrees, and it will go for 2 hours, and that will do a great job in the first layer of seasoning for this layer. So typically 2 or 3 layers is what I do, and so I'm going to do all those tonight. So in 2 hours, when this is done, I'll pull this back out and we'll start the whole process again for layer 2 as we're reconditioning this 4-quart cast iron Dutch oven. Well, it's about 3.5 hours later. 2 hours was what it cooked for 400 degrees, and I've let it cool for about the last hour with the door open on the oven. And so, yeah, I mean, it's cool to touch very well. And so, you know, it's a good opportunity while it is still slightly warm to start the second layer. So I'm going to take the flax seed oil, and I'm going to go ahead and start another layer, a light layer of oil, and I'm going to put this back in the oven. So here we go again. Okay, we've done all over the entire oven, and so now back into the big oven, turning it upside down, and I'll let that stay in there for about 10 minutes. Same thing with the lid. Okay, so those go in for 300 degrees, at 300 degrees for 15 minutes. Then I'll take them out and I'll wipe them down and wipe out any pools, any excess flaxseed oil. And yeah, it's coming right along. Okay, so it's been in the oven for about 15 minutes at 300 degrees. Now I'm going to wipe off the excess. All right, and once that's done, back in the oven upside down. All around the outsides. And back into the oven upside down. And I'm going to let that cook at 400 degrees now for 2 hours, and that will give us the second layer of oil seasoning. Well, so I've done 2 layers, and I'm going to do a 3rd layer now. It's you know, it's just a process. It takes about an hour for the thing to cool back down to where you know, it's certainly I can stick my hand on there for a lengthy period of time. No big deal. Just warm is all it is. Just warm. So yeah, it's looking good. There's a little bit of glare that I can see there in the camera. But it's really pretty good. So I'm going to go with one last layer here, and then I'll feel pretty good about this is seasoned and ready for use. All right. Okay, so 3rd layer done. Now this is going back into the oven. I'll grab the lid next. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. That goes in upside down. Set the oven for 300 degrees, and we'll let that set in there for 15 minutes. Okay, 300 degrees, and now we're going to wipe off the excess. The 3rd time is the charm. Now back in, this one goes for the last time. Okay, and now we set the oven on 400 degrees for 2 hours. Well, there it is, 3 layers of seasoning with the flaxseed oil, and really, I think it came out pretty well. Rust spots are gone, beautiful bronze color. And inside and out on the lid and on the inside of the Dutch oven itself, the outside looks good. I'm very pleased. That's what 3 layers of flaxseed oil will do. It's not sticky at all to touch, and so yeah, that's how you do it. Restoring cast iron, just kind of a slow, steady, tedious process, but not complicated at all. If you like this kind of video, I would love for you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. In fact, ring that bell, and you'll be notified every time that I post a new video. And give me a thumbs up if you'd share it. And any comments you have about the whole process, I'd love to correspond with you. Thanks for watching, and God bless.